is rumor that you are leaving Iron, Mr. Stark.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I wish I could say we had time to go full NPR, but we are running a little late, so we won't. I am your host for tonight, Roddykat! You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. News Nerds Needs Reddit, and CB Caps on Instagram. And with me tonight, the man behind the soundboard, who luckily the gremlins got worked out, Agent underscore 70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody? Thank goodness, after numerous reboots, we got rid of the audio gremlins.
Or at least for they're always waiting in the wings, always. And not with us tonight is PC and underscore dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and the various umbrella sites they're in. I was going to say we're just going to count him as a if he shows up, he shows up from now on.
At least for the rest of the summer.
Well, just in general, but that's sure. But also not with us tonight is Tim DOGG98, the Osiris that is ish on Twitter. Oh wait, he's Tim Dog 98 on Twitter, not the Osiris that is, but he should be. If he hears this, he can go ahead and change his thing accordingly. But also, you can find him at The Click Nation on Twitter. That's DKLIQNATION, and CB Cron on Twitter, and of course, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. And I don't think we have any more sites for anybody until to get mine off the ground, whichever that will be. But you can find this here podcast on Google Play and Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also the Cole Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. That is a mouthful. And of course, you can find this here podcast on the network, Cole Slither Podcast Network. That is, you can find it at Cole Slither CSPN.us. I was about to spell out the whole darn thing. That's crazy. Go there. You'll be joining us soon. All that good mess. Man, I should have wiped my face before I get in there, but no one's going to see this. This is a mostly audio podcast. We're going to start off this week with our daily prescribed notions of comic books, like we tend to do. And we're going to start off with Thor number 15, which surprisingly bannerless tie-in to War of the Realms, which I guess officially comes to a close this week with the next book we're going to talk about afterwards.
Right. So what's funny about this, and we literally just discussed this right before coming on the air, Thor number 15 is part of the conclusion to War of the Realms, but actually does not bear the banner of the event on the cover.
Right.
So
it's directly tied at that. So
right. It's kind of an undercover part A or part B. For us, it's actually part A if we read both of them. It's a part A of the conclusion, right, or the postscript to War of the Realms.
Correct. So if you are not reading Thor, you do, and you've been reading War of the Realms, and you see this the Omega book, you'll be like, okay, well, here's the thing, that's the thing. Well, here comes the reason why you should probably want to read Thor number 15.
Right, and they do hit upon very similar subjects, and do ultimately fulfill what they were meant to do. But I think if you read both of them in conjunction, it's a much fuller experience, and you're left with more information going into the aftermath.
It is, but it isn't, and I will get on that point when we start talking about the Omega book.
All right. Well, with 15, we're dealing with the direct aftermath of War of the Realms with regards to Thor himself, and the result of the the events of the last issue of the War of the Realms miniseries proper, wherein Odin proclaims, spoiler alert, Odin proclaims that Thor is now All-Father Thor, Lord of Asgard, Savior of the Realms.
Yes, and the fact that this issue takes place directly after the last page of War of the Realms #6, if I'm not mistaken, because it ends with that proclamation,
Right.
and then just rolls on into this.
Right. So, with all that said, Thor is taken aback, and we find out what has happened to. Well, he kind of takes a powder basically, and needs some time to assess what's happened. And Jane Foster also needs some time to assess what's happened. And back on Earth, everyone's trying to figure out what has happened to Loki in the wake of the defeat of the Frost Giants in New York City.
Specifically Freya, who seems to be the most concerned for him.
Right. So this is the first point in the book where I felt like if I had read Thor #15 before reading Omega, this would have made more sense with regards to Loki's story. Loki's story, I think, reads much better if you read this book first than if you read Omega first.
Well, we'll get into that also, but yeah, I think all of it would pretty much serve better. In fact, I would just go ahead and say it like I was going to say when we got to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this should have been the Omega book as opposed to what we got. Not in saying there's anything wrong with what we got,
mm-hmm.
but we kind of had already been getting. We've pretty much been getting these quote unquote hints, or these interludes, during the course of War of the Realms, specifically the last book. So it's not. I'm not saying it's not necessary, but it's less necessary.
Right.
War of Omega, but Thor 15 though. Yeah, like I said, it just kind of goes through. It touches on one or two of them, like Agent 70 said that Omega will address a little bit more. But yeah, this is definitely tied more into, hey, this is Thor right after what happens, and where I guess this and the next final issue is going to get into.
Right. Well, there were a couple of really great character moments in this issue. First among them was where Thor finds himself amongst his future and past self and with current Odin.
Yes.
And it's kind of a message to all fathers and sons out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also a wonderful punishment doled out by both Hela and Karnilla, Queen of the Norns, who were co-leading or co-queens of Hell at this point.
I had to read on that part because I was like, wait, when did this happen? And then I read a little bit. I'm like, wow, Karnilla is actually still around.
Right. And if you recall, well, that's the thing, because if you weren't keeping up with Thor,
mm-hmm.
that's how Balder gets out of Hell, because he was actually the ruler of Hell.
Or was destined to be anyway before Karnilla did what she did. Yeah.
Right. So I thought that the punishment doled out against Malekith the Accursed was poetic.
Yes.
Was you couldn't understand how this would make anyone feel any pain, but then you realize this is what drove or the lack of this is what drove Malekith to do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And to see this come forth as a punishment, I thought was pretty poetic and pretty funny.
Yeah, it was well done. Well done. I was like, I didn't, because because coming out of the war, it's like, well, Malekith has been dealt with, but we didn't necessarily know how. So therefore, it was like, well, unless you end up reading Thor, or it would have come up in the Omega book, you'd have been like, okay, well,
mm-hmm.
Malekith's off the table, so it's whatever. But
right.
the way they deal with them, they take a length in talk about that, which is great.
Right.
At first, I was like, I don't know where they were going with this. I was like, okay, because it's like seemed like there was nothing you could really do to the dude.
It was a great reveal.
Yeah,
it was a great reveal because they slow played you. They slow played the reader. You did not really understand what was going on until you turned the page, and then it all made sense. It fell into place.
And I was like, huh, okay, it looks like it was going to go this way, but oh no, we know that's what drove you, so therefore here we go.
Right.
So it was perfect.
It was the perfect ending to the book.
Yeah.
Now we can actually transition into War of the Realms Omega, and I think that the reason why this was still kind of necessary is that it did help to wrap the War Scrolls book by at least involving the main protagonist of the War Scrolls book, which was Daredevil.
Or they basically made it. Well, they tied the epilogue in from the end of War Scrolls, definitely, because they basically wrapped up that part with Daredevil, at the end of in the midst of issue 6 of War of the Realms, and then him dealing with what he had gone through, which still. So, and I'm guessing this is all still being placed because the timeline. Because obviously, I'm not reading Daredevil, but because you've been reading it, that there's some things going on in Daredevil that I'm assuming, or I guess could be assumed comes out of this, because like we kind of know that he doesn't have on the suit.
It's weird. It's one of those tie-ins that I have not, or at least I don't recall reading exactly where this falls into Daredevil's continuity. And the current state of the Daredevil books has him pretty much still on the retired side, so it's kind of hard to figure where he comes into play here.
Right.
And
it was before, like the Daredevil book is after War of the Realms, some kind of way.
Which is hard to fathom.
Yeah.
Because the Daredevil book, as it has run thus far, has him recovering from the events of the previous Daredevil run, and he's still not 100% physically and mentally. So my suspicion is that this comes after the immediate events of the current Daredevil storyline, and it's going to slot in right after. That's my suspicion.
Sure.
But just because I'm more familiar with the current events of the Daredevil book, so that's where I think this is going to fall.
Sure.
And it'll just be an interlude where the next storyline is going to be set after the events of War of the Realms and War of the Realms War Scrolls.
But back to Omega off of that, because obviously you could just go as comic continuity be damned on in between this kind of stuff.
To an extent, and we'll get to the wrap of this book, and that's something I did want to discuss. So, as we mentioned earlier, this Omega issue, much like Thor number 15, can kind of be read together, and kind of a part, like an A and a B of the aftermath. And in this issue, we really see the thought process behind what Jane Foster is thinking in conjunction with Thor as her responsibilities change, and she realizes that there's still a job for her to do, using the remnants of the War Thor / Ultimate Thor hammer. And it's funny, I don't recall the name. They I guess they renamed it the All Weapon.
Apparently,
because it changed, right? Because it changed form. And
I don't recall. You read that part of the story. Did that ever happen?
Doesn't ring a bell. Does not ring a bell at all. I did not have a chance to Google it though, but it did not ring a bell.
Sure.
And as I mentioned, we really see how we get to Jane Foster's new role in the Marvel universe.
So let me do this short and sweet. because so yeah, just like War Scrolls, there was basically like two or three, there was like 3 or 4 different little mini stories,
Right.
and all of them with with the exception of the Daredevil Heimdall one, which is basically in the truest sense of an epilogue for his part. But these are all little shorts that set up the books that are coming.
Right, they're launch points.
Right, that's pretty much all they're doing. Now, that being said, if you were not one person, like this is basically a first world problem, so I recognize that fully. If you were not a person who didn't say look at the news for comic book news and or read the solicits,
right,
this is useless to you because you kind of know it's coming. You just don't know. You might not know some A to B. But if you were just reading War of the Realms and you get to this point and be like, okay, well, here's an epilogue story and we'll see what happens out of that, thinking it could have been something more like Thor 15 when it's kind of not, but kind of is, kind of not. So this is so you see jumping off points for Jane Foster, Loki, Punisher going into their books that are coming, and that's pretty much all this book does. Like, there's not a bit of problem with that. Like I said, if you did not have prior knowledge of some of this stuff, or wanted to read it anyway,
right?
Not really a problem even then, because like I said, it is what it is. But I feel like even in issue 6 and of War and even in some of the tie-in therein, like we kind of got some of this. Like we know, like okay, yeah, like even if you didn't know some of these books were coming, they kind of hinted that there was some more stuff coming along the way, if you were paying any attention. So that's why, which is why I was saying earlier, I think before we started, like Thor 15 was a better Omega issue than Omega was for me because of that. But at the same time, like I said, it's first world thing because, like I said, I at least check out the comic book news and have
it's our business. Unfortunately, it actually is our business to be on top of,
or at least somewhat informed. Yeah,
right. No, but at least stay on top of both the solicitations and the news because it's part of our stock and trade as hosts of the Comic Book Chronicles. I wanted to actually get to the Daredevil story because he's left with artifacts. But Heimdall leaves some artifacts that he's using as batons.
Which again bears the question of what's going on in Daredevil.
Right, and that's why I mentioned. That's why my suspicion is that they're going to drop this in after the current story arc in Daredevil is finished. Because this is something that shouldn't be ignored.
Yes,
this is something that is going to lend itself to, if you're having a crisis in confidence. Especially coming off of the events of War Scrolls and the events of War of the Realms, where Daredevil has been granted, to borrow a phrase from Thundercat's, sight beyond sight. And wait, hold on. We've got a sound effect for this. And that's part of the crisis in confidence that he's dealing with at the beginning of this issue, in terms of not wanting to go back to the way things were.
Right.
He's got this. He's got these tokens that he's been given from Heimdall, and that's got to play a role in upcoming Daredevil issues. You would think. So I would hope that that's followed up on once this kind of crisis and confidence storyline that's going on in Daredevil at the moment finishes.
Right. Well, see, the only thing I can say to that is that one is Daredevil. He always has a crisis and confidence. This is nothing new. But at the same time, this is why I was thinking that it was what led him to whatever happens in, the storylines of Daredevil, which granted I'm not reading, so I don't know. But this is what I thought may have been the thing that led up to him being retired, quote unquote.
No.
But like I said, I haven't been reading.
Yeah, it doesn't fall in the correct order. So this would actually be on the other side. Right. So, all right.
That's pretty much what that is. And matter of fact, I'm going to change. I said there was going to be another book before that, but I think there's another one that slightly kind of ties, but not really. That we can go into after. Oh, geez, what did I just do? And that would be Avengers number 21.
Sure, that's also kind of an aftermath issue, but much less so.
Mm-hmm. But it's a fun one. Because we start off with, I guess I hate calling them this, but Avengers Prime, the Trinity. Actually, technically, it's not even a Trinity because it's basically Thor and Tony Stark in a hot tub in Avengers Mountain, and they're talking. Thor has his hammer. For some strange reason, we did not know off the bat. Tony has his helmet on. I'm like, what is going on? Is this gonna be somebody else? What's going on? But then we find out later why I think we find out why he has the helmet on. But but Thor, and they're both butt naked apparently, because as this comes out.
Right. It comes out as the issue moves along.
Yeah, which ends up being a through line, a side note throughout the whole issue.
Right.
Because they're talking about it and they're talking, they're throwing it out and whatever the case may be. And then Captain America comes along and, he's still in his suit. And then he gets in and it was like, and that's when we found out it was like, well, they're all butt naked in there, and then the weirdest thing about this, like Cap joins in, but he puts the shield in the water.
I'm not even going to think about why, because that makes zero sense.
Exactly, and because you see shots of it later on in the issues, like why is this?
I thought that was just a weird artistic choice. I really hope Jason Aaron didn't write that into the script.
He probably did.
That was just weird.
And
although, to be honest, you wonder if it's because they're literally just coming off of war and he just doesn't want to leave his weapon too far from himself.
Okay, but there was a place like right outside,
right on the rocks, right.
And even because Thor eventually puts his hammer, because basically Thor is in the water with his hammer because now that Mjolnir's back, he just can't stop holding it.
Right.
And obviously there's a joke in there about Thor holding his hammer while Tony's around in the hot tub. Happens to happen. So that's a thing. But anyway, so that happens, and then you get some other stuff like that little part with Blade and Hulk, which I don't know if you saw what I saw, but did it look like Blade was licking the man thinglet he had on his shoulder? Did you pay attention to that?
Scrolling now. Scrolling now.
He's not saying scroll because they haven't shown up.
Scrolling, not licking. Picture. Yeah, that does look like. Actually, no. I think
he was looking back. But
I don't think he was actually licking it, but I think that's just the way it was drawn.
But that's what I'm saying. It looks like that. I'm not saying he was actually doing that because it looks, from what it seemed like it was trying to portray, is that he was looking back at Hulk,
right?
While talking to her. But the way the picture, the way it looks like he was licking him.
Right. It definitely does. I didn't notice it.
Yeah. But anyway, that was a small thing, and then and the other thing is Hulk's inner monologue and her outer monologue is still kind of weird to me. Because she talks in the third person out loud, but she's talking like Jennifer, internally, which I guess conveys the fact that she's got control, more control than she did.
It's a different style of control.
That's true.
It's a different style of control, and it feeds off of the events of, I don't know if it was last issue, where they had the internal.
When they did
Hulk. Right, it was like an internal She-Hulk issue.
Right. Well, yeah, and I get that, but also it kind of, you could also lay a parallel to Immortal Hulk, I guess. Not necessarily the same thing because it's like we know Banner has had internal and external control of the Hulk previously, but it's kind of akin to what's going on with him in that, except for there's not two different.
Right.
There's technically not two different. Identities within them.
Right.
But that being that, and then we going on to the issue, we get this cute little section with Carol and Robbie as they go fishing for Hell Shark, apparently.
Sure. They had to clean up the waters around the Avengers Tower.
Mm-hmm. And of course, and throughout all of these whole things, there's like inner monologue happening with a bunch of the characters, which play out more as the issue goes on. And I have no doubt is going to come up somewhat soon, because like I said, Robbie being the kid on the team, he's having his doubts, and he's talking to Carol, and they have a nice little bonding moment while they're out and fishing, and then the boat turns into a hellboat. Nice looking hellboat. So you can clearly see that somebody's selling that as a figure, but still, yeah. And obviously, we know that there's going to be something coming up next issue dealing with him as Ghost Rider,
right?
So, and
I was about to say there's a parallel story in the book where Black Panther is back at work. It's funny that it's funny that and it's typical, right, of Avengers history, where no matter who the chairperson is, Captain America is still, working on planning ahead and planning on dealing with contingencies and things that are happening, because he wants to talk shop in the hot tub,
which got vetoed quickly, and
right.
More people came along, which was good. But also that his inner monologue with that was still trying to work out stuff together, but also was him basically saying, hey, this stuff is coming up. His stuff is coming up, which is not the only time in the book that happens.
Right, because it's meant as a reminder, because in the wake of this crossover, it's a reminder that, hey, there's a lot of stuff the Avengers still have coming up.
And I feel like there's been a little too much of that, though.
You mean foreshadowing?
Yeah. Like, okay, we get it. We know stuff's coming. Like, I know you have to remind people every now and then, but it's been done in like every other issue.
I think it's just a reminder that. What's funny is that I don't think we need it.
Well,
every comic somebody's first comic. So yeah.
Well, I agree, but even then, even if you've been reading the Avengers like the last few issues, like these reminders have been,
they've been coming off.
Definitely,
I agree. Yeah,
so
I agree. They've been coming off. And you were going to mention the other parallel story.
Let's see. You talked about T'Challa went to go see Coulson, and to try to get him off of the to try to see what's going on with that and his Squadron Supreme, which went about as well as it supposed to in that situation, and of course, like I said, the meeting goes well, which is also another foreshadowing in the fact that, hey, they're going to be dealing with that soon,
right?
But after that, I'm not surprised, because so after all of that, you start seeing more and more people come into the hot tub, including one amusing moment with Hulk. Well, with Hulk and everybody, and Captain America, like, oh Lord, with what they saw. You're muted.
No, I was gonna say, I was just about to click it off. What's funny is that there's two reactions that were funny.
Yes.
One was Carol. Right. One was Carol's reaction.
Oh, right, because she hid
Robbie's
eyes. Yeah.
Right, and the other one was obviously Cap, because he's like, Mr. Polite, Mr. Bashful, right? And Thor and Iron Man are just like, hey now.
Right. Which, well, I guess at this point, they shared a kiss. I don't know if they've actually bumped uglies, but yeah, it was like, and Thor was like, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, Tony being Tony, he was like, hey. So, like I said, and you can still see, even though Cap was kind of hiding his eyes, he was still kind of sneaking a peek, though. Which like I said, the whole panel was pretty funny to me. And Hulk was just like,
So,
but yeah,
we want to talk about what happened at the end.
Yes. I was going to say, overall, it was a fun issue, but all of that happening, because as issues like these tend to happen, they lead somewhere into more foreshadowing, especially. And of course, we find one, because you can't go a whole issue with it just being good without something turning around from it. And there we find one Mephisto, which is good to see that he was in the last place we left him, quote unquote, as far as Damnation is concerned.
Right. And that is in Sin City, literally.
Mm-hmm. So because I think we've mentioned this before, like we've seen them in various other places and seemingly back in Hell, which okay, we don't know when this timeline is and this and another, but he's no longer the ruler of Hell. Johnny Blazes, which we'll find out some more about next, which we'll get into a little bit more next this issue. But we see Mephisto here with what seems to be a chessboard with a bunch of pieces with more foreshadowing of stuff that we've seen coming up. Some been mentioned, some that hasn't. Well, actually, all of it has been mentioned at one point or another. I think the one thing I forgot that there was one bit of foreshadowing that I don't think. Actually, no, it probably was it. I just don't remember how. But when Carol was talking to Robbie, she mentioned decree, and which means that hey, that's clearly going to come up. And when we left everybody in the hot tub before we got to Mephisto, everybody was having thought bubbles about their doubts and whatnot, which is why I said a lot of this stuff is as foreshadowing as all that stuff is also their doubts that are probably going to be played on probably by Mephisto in the coming months or whatever. So yeah, so basically, it was a fun issue all the way around with a lot of foreshadowing of stuff that we kind of already seen being foreshadowed before.
Right, it's kind of getting the book back on track.
Yes, from coming out of War of the Realm, which especially coming out of the event, yeah, you kind of have to do that, especially
with this many characters, you have to kind of reassert control over the story. So
yeah. So probably the best part about this is like especially when everybody was in the hot tub, was like Robert was like, is it always like this? And it was like, what, the Earth's Mightiest Found Family? I'm like, yeah, when it works, which is cool because that's kind of how the Avengers do work. They're kind of like a family, and they, when everything works well between them, it's which I guess that could also mean something else that is coming, but but they're like a big family, and it's cool.
Right. Well, I think what's implied is that, especially with what we know, is that there's going to be some issues with Ghost Rider. So,
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we know stuff's coming up between that, and not only just that, but with whatever stuff is with the rest of them. Because even, Thor's doubts about his worthiness. The Tony's talking about internal monologue about him being a clone. All that stuff that they talked about in their inner monologue is going to definitely come out, in addition to what we know is initially coming with Robbie. So, but yeah, that was pretty much Avengers. That was the particular pick of the week for me. So we'll see how that pans out.
All right.
Next,
What's next?
Get back to what we initially said we were going to talk about is. Which I guess I could have gone another way with this, but that's fine. Invisible Woman #1, which is first of a 5-issue, I believe, miniseries directly dealing with Sue Storm of the Fantastic Four, if the name didn't mean anything to you. So here's the weird thing about this one. So it's not weird because it starts off with a little flashback we see Sue on a mission, what we found out to be for S.H.I.E.L.D., which is not the first time we have seen her working with S.H.I.E.L.D., especially during the events of like Secret Wars. But in other, I'm fairly certain in other times also. But we see her on a mission. It almost plays out like kind of like an action movie or like a suspense movie or like a spy movie would. And it's like you show something in the past and it sets up this and sets up that, and then cut to the present. Where we see where we see Sue, and then she just happens to get informed on a mission that the person that she was with the mission with in the flashback happens to be a part of, and they got captured, and so now they needed information from her, but now she takes it upon herself to kind of go and try to find out what's going on with the person who, strangely enough, weirdly looked like Namor for a second. And then which kind of informed me, like, okay, yeah, we know Sue has a type outside of Reed, and and of course there is being their spy stuff. There are two obvious folks that end up showing up. One being Nick Fury Jr.
3 obvious, really.
Well, yeah,
because they're senior and junior.
right. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I just kind of Nick is. Yeah, but you're right because there was Nick in the past or the OG Nick, and then there was a current Nick. That shows up. And of course, again, which plays out just like a movie would of this type. It's like, hey, I found out about this thing, but I was going to try to stop you, but I know I can't. Well, I can't stop you, but I won't. And then because obviously there's probably going to be something he wants out of this himself. But regardless of the mission, there's this. So here's the weird part about this issue for me, and maybe this is just a little niggling thing. She starts off on the mission. She's still in Fantastic Four clothes, and it's supposed to be off the quote unquote off the books. It was explicitly said, but it's like basically her presence or it's some presence there, will start an international incident. Why didn't she get in some regular clothes? She just basically went into Madripoor or doctor, on the side of Madripoor somewhere in Fantastic Four clothes, like no one would know who she was. And then basically got into not got into a fight, and then ends up meeting up with, of course, the other spy in the room, the major spy in the room, Black Widow, which ends up the book, which we knew, I guess. Well, which I knew because there was an article about this, I think this in the news, but I guess it shouldn't have been too much of a surprise, And I know there were probably some people who would be like, "Why is Sue Storm?" doing spy stuff. I'm like, well, like we said earlier,
it's not the first time.
Exactly.
Not the first time. She's actually appeared in issues of recent versions of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where they've used the obvious, the obvious reasons for having her become, they use the obvious points of her power as being useful in spycraft.
Right.
I thought this was a fun start to the series. It's a miniseries after all, and it actually seems to have a reason for being, because there's a portion in the book that goes over the current status quo of the Fantastic Four. And with the children of the Fantastic Four having aged somewhat in space during the FF's hiatus after Secret War, or Secret Wars, that Sue is kind of rediscovering her roots to a certain extent. Reed is still the workaholic scientist that he always has been, but in this day and age where you don't need Sue to make wheat cakes for everybody, she is doing her thing. And what it is, at least in this limited series, is that she's off to rescue an old colleague. That's the premise of the story. And it's kind of cool that this is, as I mentioned earlier, this is a story that seems to have a place in the FF story.
Yeah, I feel like this is good also because obviously she's never had a ongoing series herself, and some would argue there probably wouldn't be enough for an ongoing series for herself. I would argue otherwise, but at the same time, hey, we'll see where it comes from for this. I mean, I was going to say everybody else has had a solo book, but that's not true.
Right. I don't believe Reed has had a
solo book. Not, no. But most of the stuff...
Has the Torch?
No.
I think Ben is the only character that has been given any sort of...
Right. I know Torch has pretty much been a guest star in other people's stuff a whole lot, but he is not in a book of himself, of his own. So that's why I had to retract what I was going to say on that point.
Right. Yeah, it's really only Ben, and for good reason, because he's...
Yeah, I mean, and some would argue that Fantastic Four kind of, especially at one point, focused on Reed a good bit.
Right, and what I was going to add is that the reason why they gave Ben a solo title is that they literally broke him off of the Fantastic Four in the wake of the first Marvel superhero Secret Wars.
Right, and he was
on Battle World. Right, and that's where that book came from.
Right, and not only that, because he was in
2-in-1 also.
Yes, 2-in-1. He actually, basically around that time he gained a lot of popularity in the comics, and and because you remember he had a cartoon also, so they had this thing hand, so he was kind of popular or popping around that time, where he was getting more exposure.
Sure.
not unlike Spidey or Wolvie.
Sure. So it's nice to see it's nice to see Sue get some shine, and we'll see where this story goes. Thankfully, it doesn't have to worry about having to maintain a long form story. Hopefully, it'll be able to tell a good story in 5 or 6 issues.
Right, and maybe even stoke another one somewhere down the line.
Sure.
Somebody has a story for it. The art. The last thing I wanted to mention was, what was that? Adam Hughes? What did he just do?
Adam Hughes did the cover.
Okay, whoever did the interiors was on point, because the art was really nice. But the Hughes cover was also pretty good too.
Right, it's like a light painted style.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's watercolor. It could be digital, because obviously digital can you can do a lot with digital nowadays. Who is the artist?
Mattia de Elise? I don't know. I can't.
Mattia de Eulis?
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Eulis?
Yeah. Folks' names.
It doesn't ring any bells for me. I'm not familiar with the artist at all.
So here is where
it's kind of Phil Noto-ish, but it's a little bit more defined.
We will get to Noto in a little bit. I will take this time to bring up something that I had saved for the news, in that on Comixology right now there is a free book called the Young Guns Sketchbook, I believe it's called. And it's basically like samples of new artists that Marvel has employed, and this person might be one of them. I'm not sure, but you can go check that out on Comixology. And like I said, I think the Young Guns Sketchbook. But like I said, there's a link to it in the show notes, and you can go check that out for yourself when we get to it. Anyway, moving right along, and we're kind of pushing. So, maybe 1 or 2 more. Oh, you kind of alluded to it, so we'll get to that one. Amazing Spider-Man number 25.
All right.
Since you mentioned wheat cakes,
huh.
Which did actually come up in that issue. So Amazing Spider-Man 20. I'll let you take the book of this one, but it's basically a double-sized issue, anniversary issue, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. It's an issue number 25. So this is immediately in the wake of the most recent Hunted storyline involving Kraven the Hunter, and we deal with the aftermath of the Lizard, aka Dr. Kirk Connors' decisions at the end of that story that led to the rescue of his family from the clutches of Kraven's son. And we have what doesn't exactly seem like nothing is as it seems when it comes to Spidey's story, and a parallel story, because Spidey's trying to get someplace. He's trying to get with Mary Jane to attend a show, and this is so typical Spider-Man when it comes to his social life. He's on his way somewhere, and something has to get in the way. What's funny is that he actually does send a text that says, "It's a work thing, sorry."
But Mary Jane being used to all this, and the story kind of pivots to her telling her side of the story.
Right. It's what happens. Yeah, it's what happens to her in the wake of Peter basically standing her up.
Which, guess what? Spoiler alert: MJ is as much of a hero as Spidey is at this point, because like she's always been a smart person. She has always been. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. She's been hanging around. I'm not saying it's not even because of Peter, because obviously before this, I think she's always been kind of a person that's been, like a doer. But
she's not exactly the classic damsel in distress. And
exactly.
She hasn't been for a long time.
Right. And some would argue she's never been, but
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure in the earliest versions of Mary Jane, she probably was.
Well, yeah, that's but that's kind of swiftly
right. And what I was going to add is that this sort of new status quo that they're teasing, they haven't exactly come out and said what it is yet, but they're definitely teasing it, because the story that MJ is dealing with is a direct tie back to events of 90 Spider-Man. We're talking McFarlane era, you know, David McElhaney and
I'm gonna argue that would almost also in the inclusion of the 90s animated series.
that as well.
Yeah.
That as well. But I distinctly remember very early McFarlane, even before he came on the show. This was, I think, in the works as part of a story where Mary Jane Watson is a big deal. She's on television, and that is a direct tie. That's directly tied into in this issue, and is teased to be a new there's a change to her situation teased.
I don't know how new it is. Basically, kind of getting back to more than because it's not like it's not a situation that hasn't happened to her before. It's just that
it's a new status quo because she's. Well, no, what I was going to add is that there's a funny bit where this past rival of hers,
right,
that she's dealing with is kind of asking her what she's been up to, and it's funny when Mary Jane is like, "Well, I did this and I did this."
Mm-hmm.
Big things that have happened in Marvel.
Right. And the right ones were like, oh, recently. Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. Stuff that has put her, you know, in the forefront of people's for different reasons. Because
I ran a global mega corporation.
Right.
Tony Stark. You know, that's the stuff that's not, you know, explicitly mentioned, but that's what's, you know,
right, because you mentioned the Avengers stuff, and then I was like, wait, I expected her to mention the Stark stuff, which is more recent.
No, she went in chronological.
Right,
she started with the Avengers stuff, and then the global mega corporation.
Right.
So, and this former rival is like, yeah, you need to get out. You know, I understand you getting out of acting because of the pressure.
Right.
Oh my God, lady!
Oh right, you just basically got out of the limelight. I'm like, no, she didn't.
Not exactly. So, there's a funny show that she's attending, and
I want to say that might have been a real show. I feel like I've seen so basically she goes to this, I guess it was a musical from what it seemed like, or a stage play. Which there have been Marvel stage plays before, most notably the Spider-Man one, ironically, that was plagued with issues and, you know, whatnot. But I believe the one she went to was based off of the Fantastic Four. And I feel like there was probably one for that, some sort of stage play for that.
You got me.
Like probably like an early 70s, or not early, like a late 70s, early 80s type thing. I don't know. I might be just misremembering or something, but I feel like that was something that might have happened.
You got me.
So that could have been a number of callbacks and whatnot that this issue brings up. But yeah, so that while Peter's off dealing with the Lizard, which I feel like I like the MJ stuff way more than the Lizard thing, because the Lizard one was like, okay, well, that could go one or two ways, and it went the way you expected it to. But at the same time, we also missed a part. So the mysterious person also shows up. I guess we're going to call him Kindred until we find out either his real name or that sticks.
Right.
I don't know. But who, after the events of last issue, seemingly dealt with Mysterio, or who we thought was Mysterio, but apparently, which I feel like I called this one, but I didn't mention it, that there was a swerve, because the person that was dealt with as Mysterio was not the actual one, and in fact, it was Mysterio kind of pulling the strings to a certain point of that, which also put me in mind, especially with some of the stuff that happened, well, with a thing that happened in speaking to Petey's part about it, kind of likened to the current Spider-Man movie.
Sure.
Because I was like, wait, there are drones in here, and then there's Mysterio, even though they were not related. No, like there's Mysterio doing this thing over here, and then there was drones over here with the Lizard stuff. I'm like, wait, did they just like mix some stuff up and put together? But what we couldn't find out is that Mysterio's working for this other mysterious Kindred person, and he was in trouble for him before something he did. So I guess Mysterio actually did die at one point, because I feel like I don't remember that, right?
It was in the 90s.
Right.
It was in the 90s. I think it was coming out of his appearance in that first Daredevil book with Kevin Smith. I think that's where it happened. I'd have to go back and check that out. But ultimately, with regards to this book, this much like War of the Realms and much like the Avengers issue that came out this week, this served as a wrap to that Hunted storyline and really set things in motion going forward. We have what happened to Doc Connors, because that is actually important to Peter Parker's future as well, in terms of his ongoing studies, and that's actually one of the setups for the future that is in this book. Another setup, as you mentioned, is what's going on with this Kindred character. That's where the book actually leaves off. And as we mentioned earlier, we also have Mary Jane's possible future change in her status quo, which is directly related to Mysterio, which it was a nice reveal at the, it's very much towards the end of the book, and you just couldn't help but think, oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Okay.
Well, there was one other thing that was also foreshadowing or something that's coming up, in that Mary Jane's part, she was with, which this part is the person she was with also has had past ties to Peter, but the real deal is who they were dealing with, which was the new version of Electro, a newer version of Electro, who at the end of this ends up getting recruited by, I'm just going to go ahead and say, another rebranding of the Sinister Six, because we already saw Vulture and his Savage Six. That was one, because that's kind of some classic characters, some characters revolving around Vulture. But then we have a more classic looking, with the exception of newer versions of the Sinister Six, but they rebranded themselves off as the Syndicate, which I'm pretty sure both of those are going to butt heads at some point, I feel like.
And this is all a result of the Hunted storyline, which had all these characters being trapped under a bubble in Central Park. They're all animal-based supervillains. So this particular group is all female.
Right. And
it's an interesting mix. It kind of blends in a little bit of Spider-Verse with a little bit of Superior Foes.
Especially with the Doc Ock.
Right.
I was like, oh, wait, look, it's Liv. Just watched Spider-Verse again, so
exactly.
But we don't know. Actually, wait, do we actually know who that person is, or no?
Not 100% sure.
But I'm sure they'll get into it. Yeah, because I was like, I don't recall there being. Actually, I do, but I don't know if that was something coming out of an article or whatever the case may be. Because obviously we know Octavius is in San Francisco, and not a woman, and not Doc Ock.
Right. In terms of the last portion of the main story, to kind of set things in motion for future stories in the Amazing book, we're dealing with a little bit of time travel.
Yes.
And this character hasn't been seen for a little while, since his ongoing series was canceled, so it's kind of nice to see this character come back.
Yeah, there was actually a couple of different outside of the main stuff of the book, because there was a couple of little shorts after the main thing. Oh yes, that was going back to the end of the main story. So when Kindred gets to the last page, and you basically was like, well, your friend, this is basically so long for right now, but your friends are going to get involved, basically. And he had I guess what looked like pictures of various other spider powered folks that we know, up and including Jessica Drew, Silk, Miles, obviously. And there was one picture that was an eyeball. That was basically a picture of an eye, or a green eye, and I'm not sure who that was.
I think it's MJ.
You think so? I was thinking, but that seemed weird though, because everybody else had like spider powers.
Right, but I think MJ is the one that we know that has green eyes.
Well, and here I was thinking Black Cat, but I don't think she has green eyes. Who also has a book we want to talk about real quick, but later. So there was that. So apparently the other Spider folk are going to get. And obviously Gwen was also pictured.
Right.
That's also going to come up at some point, which I'm kind of curious as to how. Like, is he going to just go into their books, or is all this going to play out here in Amazing?
We'll find out.
Yeah, because we know all of those people.
This particular character, right? This particular character's capabilities are still a mystery. So
exactly, yeah. So that's Amazing Spider-Man 25. It was another click of the week, but there was, like I said, there was a couple other little short stories. One involving Doctor Strange, which that's a theme going around this week. So a couple other things, but that's about it. You know, there was that one. What did you think about that last one? The one that was supposedly done by a bot. Because there was a show story that was they said they ran a bunch of Spider-Man stories through a bot, and this is what got spit out, and they wrote and drew it out, which it seems like just like a weird thing, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like that just looked too crazy to be done by a bot. And I'm not saying bots can't do big crazy stuff, because that's been the thing for the last few years. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. You're sure this is not somebody writing like it was a bot doing this? They have machine learning things that will do stuff like this. So I don't know.
And very quickly, in the preview for the following issue, the superior foes of Spider-Man are on the next cover.
Yes. Which, hey, welcome back, Willis. Which we know.
Boomerang, exactly. Boomerang is a recurring character
and in fact got mentioned in the course of this in the course of the main story. Because remember when Peter's like, yeah, everybody's that's been in my life and lately has been having major changes, like even Boomerang.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so which is going into you know what? And I thought when they got to that part, going back to that, I thought he was gonna propose to MJ. Because MJ was going to tell her what happened to her, because he didn't know, and then she told him to go first. I was like, okay, this is going to be a marriage proposal, but nope. Then we clicked to him going back into the classroom as a student.
Yep.
So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, that is Amazing Spider-Man 25. It's definitely another potential click of the week this week.
Alrighty.
Did you want to hear it? Let's see. Well, since we're on a spider kick, let's do Miles real quick.
All right. There's not much to it. Because it's very much a direct follow-up to the ending of the previous issue, which had a bunch of things happening in Miles's life, but we find out that he has been abducted by a character named Quantum. And we all know that Quantum carries a very there's a lot of context, especially if you're a fan of the MCU in there, but we still don't know exactly where this character comes from.
Right.
We find Miles being tested, literally and figuratively, by those who have abducted him in the previous issue. So that's the bulk of what's been going on in this issue.
Yeah,
I wonder what the purpose of the testing is, and that's
the thing coming out of that. And there's apparently still some more, and we know, out of articles that know in a couple of issues that somehow the Ultimate Universe is going to come back into play some kind of way. But we don't necessarily know the extent of that. But I guess
it's soon.
Yes.
Because unfortunately, as we mentioned earlier, we do pay attention to solicitations. We do pay attention to news articles. Like I said, it's our stock and trade.
Yeah, it kind of hurts. Well, it kind of helps, but it hurts also because normal people read it from month to month. It's like, oh, what's coming next? It's like, well, we kind of have an idea if you're
exactly. Because if my understanding is correct, it's 2 issues away.
Right.
So there's not, there may be some connection between the events of this issue and that aforementioned approaching event in Miles's book. So we will see what happens.
Yeah. So the only other thing about this issue is the whole testing thing kind of skeeved me out just a little bit, because it was like, and I don't know. Actually, well, two things. At first, I was like, "Hey, this is playing out like a video game," And I'm like, I kind of wouldn't mind seeing a mouse-centered video game where he's just like running through tests like Portal style, but at the same time, like, no, that's not right. And like I said, knowing that people of color in the past have been prodded and tested.
Yeah, it's meant to be creepy.
But yeah, that it was like, it's kind of.
It is meant to be creepy.
So it did what it was supposed to do on that point.
Right.
So you want to go ahead and throw out another book?
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to throw out something fun. I had a little bit of fun reading this. It's Black Cat #2.
Oh, good. I'm glad you went.
And I don't have too much to say about this. I hemmed and hawed about picking up a physical copy of this. Right. I really like J. Scott Campbell's covers. I'm not even going to play. I'm going to freely admit that I like J. Scott Campbell's covers for Black Cat so far. I may pick up this issue just for that.
So for those who don't know, J. Scott Campbell is an artist. He tends a lot of his covers tend to have a lot of cheesecake in them.
Not as much cheesecake.
Suggestive.
Yeah, it's very right. He definitely does. Yeah, he definitely does. It's less cheesecake, but more suggestive.
Yes.
And I was going to add that this story was pretty entertaining, especially if you're a fan of recent heist movies, like the Ocean's movies and even Ant-Man, because Felicia is basically running a team. And every once in a while, much like the terminology that they put out in the rebooted Ocean's movies, you needed a grease man, you needed two so-and-sos and suches. In this issue, Felicia's team needs a Merlin.
Yes.
And what's a Merlin? Well, we find out what a Merlin is.
Exactly.
The point of view of a team of thieves. So, especially in the Marvel universe. So.
Which also, like, you would think, well, and she kind of addresses it. It was like, yeah, you kind of got to watch, because they're a wild card. And so they're basically dealing with something that's magic. And who is the person that you would go to for magic items, or the main person who you would go for the magic items in the Marvel universe? They go to burgle Doctor Strange's houses.
Right.
Sanctum Sanctorum.
And spoiler alert, they're not stealing anything magical.
Well, yes, but somebody does.
Right. So it's a byproduct. It's a byproduct of the heist. And that's what I found so entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of all things that they would steal from the Sanctum Sanctorum, or at least try to, this is what they're after. And I kind of got a kick out of that.
Right. Which in my notes, I said, so wait, it turns into a national treasure all of a sudden?
And it's a form of it, yeah.
Yeah, because of what they took. It was like, well, that seems almost national treasure-ish.
Yeah, definitely. This is definitely echo.
Right. So from that, actually, but yeah, I enjoyed that issue also. Some of the writing in it was like, okay, this is weirdly perfectly dated, especially with like how the snakes were talking.
Oh, sure. But I think that was all, that was
purposeful, yeah, but it was just funny.
Yeah, like I said, the draw for me was the setup of the heist, and like I said, if you're a fan of the premise of a lot of those movies, this was a lot of fun. So I have a feeling that this issue is going to be a hard copy that I go to pick up in the aftermath of having read our preview copies.
I was about to say, wait, for the innards or just for the cover that you already mentioned?
For both. Okay. For both, just because I enjoyed the issue, and the cover makes it, the cover is a bonus.
Sure. Real quick, coming off of that, because there was something on that point that I wanted to address. Ironheart #8, which real quick. And
the art inside isn't bad either. So
yeah,
let's not downplay that. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, that is absolutely right. That's absolutely right. We're talking about the Black Cat.
Right. It's Travel Foreman. He is no slouch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I loved his work on Ultimates.
Yeah.
And there was a Carnage in credit, stupid thing, whatever. But anyway, yeah, Ironheart #8. Which has nothing to do with Black Cat. However, Riri ends up going after the events of last issue where she was battling zombies with the Wasp and her friend Xavier. She is back on the hunt for the 10 rings, led by Midnight Fire, because the person she fought last issue was a member of the Ten Rings, but they were also magic users. And of course, like I just said, if you want something magical, dealing with something magical, the first person you think of in the Marvel Universe is Doctor Strange. So she pays a visit to the Sanctum, and here's where the back to the Black Cat comes in. Stephen Strange makes a note that says, like, well, as she comes in, he was fighting some creature, which she kind of helps out on. But after that, they get to talking, and it's kind of cute because Stephen's kind of talking to her like almost in like a mentorist, even though he's more magic and she's more science. Like she kind of talks to him, he kind of talks to her, in kind of a mentorist kind of way through part of it. He even probes her with the Eye of Agamotto, which was kind of rude without her consent, but that's sort of said. But he also mentions that the formidable defenses of the Sanctum, which, as we just said in the Black Cat, she just got broken into by a crew. In fact, I want to say, I feel like, and I don't know if this is the case or not, he mentions a part of the Sanctum that also gets mentioned in Black Cat. That could have been a coincidence, maybe not, because he was like, you don't know what I had to deal with in this part of the Sanctum, and in that part of the Sanctum, like I said, Sanctum was just mentioned in the Black Cat issue that we just talked about. So I don't know if that has to do with what's going on in Black Cat right, or what's going to happen in Black Cat next month, or that was just coincidence. At this point, I choose to believe that it's similar. Because Marvel's continuity has been kind of strangely on point, even within the month. So
it's kind of funny that I didn't read this issue. Does Riri actually walk into the Sanctum on her own?
Oh yeah. Okay. She goes and knock on the door. Steven opens it as he's fighting his thing, and then
he lets her in though.
Yeah, he lets her in. And then after they finish dealing with the thing, they start talking, and he helps her out with the thing she's working on.
Right. I was just gonna add that there's one Marvel character that seems to find himself inside the Sanctum Sanctorum often. That's Spider-Man. Over the last couple of months, it's like, hey, I'm here. I'm like,
right. Which actually, and that was the part we forgot to mention from Amazing Spider-Man, because there was that backstory with him and J. Jonah Jameson, which led into him breaking into the Sanctum.
Walking into the Sanctum, right?
Exactly. The same way that Jonah walked into his apartment. And then like pretty much it's the same setup that started that whole that story, with the same thing that happened to the Doctor Strange and Peter.
Right. Well, he doesn't use a crowbar to get in.
Well, that is true. But nevertheless,
my point is, he's just like, it's just like, hey, I'm here. I
did love that part with Jonah, though. That was kind of funny. It was like, yeah, this and that, the other. It was like, and then it ended up being something else, and then that's when he goes to Stephen,
But yeah, that's cool that that they had Doctor Strange's home plays a role in a bunch of these books this month.
And a couple of books and that was kind of wild. And there was even one part of when Stephen and Riri were talking, and he was basically like, hey, I know Tony Stark, and I know he's a mentor of yours. Don't let his hubris, get the better of you, because I know I see some of that in you. Because being that she's a super smart and think that
got all the answers,
yeah, basically, and which is kind of funny, because I was like, well, pot calling kettle black, but at least he acknowledges, like, yeah, I have some of those same issues, so he at least bring that part up. I'm like, okay, that saves that part, because like, right. You're not talking. So, but yeah, but this was a pretty good issue, and they're on the track of and Doctor Strange gets hip to her backstory a little bit, and why she's really trying to find out what this thing that she's looking for in relation to Midnight Fire and the Ten Rings, which is a place of a thing with a lot of power that's magical, and which also leads us, because the place that we end up finding out that this wellspring is, take one guess as to where that would be. One quick guess, right off the top of your head.
The Wellspring?
Yes.
For the 10 Rings?
Yes.
China.
Nope. Wakanda. Which leads her into
which makes no sense, but okay.
Given with the story, it kind of does.
Right, but you mentioned the 10 Rings, and I'm like, okay, that's
you're right. You would think so. Well, yeah, but that was mentioned during the course of this. Like, well, there's been other. It's not just one wellspring. It's been others, and the rest of them have been closed. But there's this hidden one.
It's a Lazarus pit. Okay, I gotcha.
Kind of, sort of. But so there's a hidden one that just happens to get found out in this one, and it's in Wakanda, which leads Riri to end up going to Wakanda next issue. And of course, she's going to end up teaming up and meeting Shuri, which I feel like this last few issues has pretty much been her going on a world tour of the Marvel Universe and teaming up with folks. Because like I said, first it was Miles, then it was the Nadia the Wasp, and this issue is Doctor Strange, and next issue is Shuri.
Alrighty.
And the Wakanda. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. So anyway, I don't know if you got another one or we can go to
rapid fire. I can go through a lot of these.
Hit it
quickly. Here we go. Firing it up. Get to the chopper. All right. I'll run through my books. First off is one of the disappointments of the week, and that's Wolverine and Captain America Weapon Plus #1. Oh, bother. This really could have been a better story in more capable hands. Both the writing and the art betray a story that at least had solid foundations in stories that have come before, such as Grant Morrison's X-Men run about the Weapon Plus program. Fans of the program's history will be disappointed. Next up is Batman #74. I sort of understand what Tom King is doing here, but I care less and less. Flashpoint Batman is essentially trying to resurrect Martha Wayne to give Bruce a family again and stop Bruce from being Batman. Bruce stops the plan, and things are left on a cliffhanger. I think we both read Champions #7, and my notes on this is just that Caldera is a big pain in the butt, and Ms. Marvel steps away for a bit, and I think you'll have more to add on that.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that is so this is basically getting back to the Sam and Caldera, and you're right about that. She is kind of a pain in the neck, but or ass rather. But this is goes back to the storyline of Sam going off into space to get his helmet, or to get a helmet, a Nova helmet again. And we come to find out that the helmet's been taken by another group of people who's been around lately, being the Thieves Guild.
Right. Their branches have expanded. The number of their branches have expanded.
Yes, even out into space, which I like the fact that they did here was they called to the fact that, hey, no, this happened in Amazing Spider-Man, and they even put in the last page was like, hey, well, instead of you having to read it, we'll just kind of touch on the part where that comes into play. Right. So again, like I said, Marvel continuity is kind of getting us in, but yeah. Outside of that, that's pretty much it. They break into the Rock, which is basically Nova headquarters. Now, I was thinking of the Rock, the movie, and there was no Sean Connery, but we did get Baymax from Big Hero 6 apparently.
Okay.
And I say that because and I've seen this character before because this character started in a Deadpool book, which was written by Jerry Duggan. Jerry Duggan, I think, is also a comedian, and the person that it was patterned off of, who has the same name, is a comedian, and there's an actual comedian person named Scott Adsit.
Yeah, he's a comedian and an actor.
Yes, he who also plays Baymax in Big Hero 6, and he was also was he on The Office or some show? I can't remember. But you've seen this guy and or have heard this guy before. But the character, 30 Rock, that's what it was. Excuse me. But yeah, so he's been made a character in the Marvel Universe, and that happened in a volume of Deadpool back in the day, which gets mentioned in this book.
Right, and he's been part of the Nova Corps for a while now.
Exactly, because he was a Shield agent, and then he ended up taking over running the Nova Corps, and and something ends up happening to him at the end of near the end of this issue.
Right. Unfortunately, the Nova Corps has been made a joke, and it's kind of unfortunate. So and it plays into the events of this issue. So it's kind of depressing.
Yeah. But last of it is like we find out that the helmet's been stolen by the Thieves Guild and is now back on Earth, which will lead Sam and Caldo back on Earth. And apparently, the helmet doesn't work because it was Sam's dad's helmet, who may or may not be alive. So, and the last page is any kind of spoiler. It sounds like what this is ultimately leading up to is Sam's going to get his powers back.
Last for me is Event Leviathan #2. So this issue actually has an interesting way of recapping the current status of the investigation into who Leviathan is and what they've done to basically decapitate all the heads of the spy agencies around the DC Earth. Spoiler alert, Jason Todd is currently the prime suspect, but that is likely a red herring, but that is the cliffhanger in this book that leads into issue #3. That's it for me.
Cool. Then I'll get to mine. I was going to ask you, did you read the Wolverine Blade thing? Because of course it's Wolverine and Captain America and versus Blade, but that's a whole nother thing.
Oh, is it? Oh my
yeah.
gosh. No, I did not get the chance to read it.
Yeah, I didn't either because I didn't think I was going to read either one, but it's like it was interesting both of them out. But anyway, my books, Star Wars #68. So we are entering the beginnings of the Pac Nodo era. And as I said the last time Star Wars came up, this is taking up around the time of Empire Strikes Back, which includes this issue starting off with Star Wars with the Empire Strikes Back crawl in a sense, but they got it laid out on the page sort of. Which was kind of cool. And it kind of lets you know where this is taking place. They do the thing that you're never supposed to do in any good D&D campaign, and they split the party. So Luke and R2's got a mission, Han and Leia's got a mission, and Chewie and 3PO have another mission. And of course, being in true Star Wars fashion, they all hit particular snags. Or at least we see two of them. Like Luke didn't necessarily hit that much of a snag, except for he ended up back on a desert planet again. But they're ultimately of a similar goal to pretty much disrupt the Empire. One has to do with two of them had to kind of do with some sort of subterfuge, but basically it's trying to get rid of a large chunk of the Empire. That's all we're going to say. Han meets one of Leia's exes, just like we met Sana in a sense. And and Chewie and 3PO meet up with some unknown life forms that was not there on the planet they were sent to destroy to get rid of the Empire. So that's going to cause a problem. It also weirdly reminded me that hey, there was a book in the extended universe of old that Chewie died in trying to save people getting off of a planet, but luckily that's not canon anymore. So we're just going to have to go. So hopefully, obviously that's not going to go there. Anyway, Wonder Twins #6. The twins end up stopping a global event from happening, but also keeps worldwide sweeping changes from happening and ruined the life of one of the characters' best friends. But they didn't necessarily fully stop the said global event that happened, because apparently if the last page is in the indication, it's still going to happen, and it has to do with a worldwide body swapping. So go figure on that one, like a Freaky Friday style thing, I guess. Young Justice #7. So the team got whisked away at the events of last issue into the multiverse, and not unlike the Spider-Verse, but definitely not. So they end up getting whisked off of Gem World, and they've been basically traveling the multiverse because no dimension wants them. So they've been going from place to place. Basically against their will. So, and they end up like in the places like where Captain Carrot comes in. They end up ultimately on in the dimension of Kingdom Come, which is a event that I've never read. Now that I think about it,
Really?
yeah,
I'm getting crap from Matt Wang 97 for not reading Crisis Infinite or in Infinite.
At least I've read that. Come on,
number 1 through 12 that came out before I was old enough to collect it.
Although I'm probably gonna go back and read that one anyway. Yeah, but I bought Kingdom Come and I have intended to read it because there were some things
it's
that were
only 4 issues. That's why
that's just
it's not as bad.
But yeah. But there was some stuff that was brought up during the course of this issue that called back to it, and I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of like Injustice, but not really. But yeah, so that happens, and then the whole thing is being played for with a whole bunch of laughs at least to the audience, not to the group, because some of them are having trauma. But they get, like I said, they get booted from dimension to dimension, and including the one from Kingdom Come, where Dr. Fate's like, yeah, I did the math and I sent them home, but oh wait, I did the math wrong, so now they're in another dimension. But don't worry, they'll be fine. And we just see them at the last page in a I'm not sure what dimension it is, but apparently, according to the footnote, is the worst universe. And Captain Carrot makes a comment about the multi-thirsty. Oh, wait, is it multiverse thirsty? That's what he says. So, but I'm thinking that might have a Bugs Bunny thing. Anyway, last but not least, I've been enjoying Young Justice, even though it's just right. I shouldn't say it like that, but hey, it's true. Bitterroot, Red Summer, one shot number 1 is my last book, and all it is it's a big one shot book with a bunch of little mini stories in it that are kind of basically loosely collected. Like there are some backstories for a couple of characters. There's 2 that are like, one is a backstory, and then there's a kind of mainish story that ties into it that finds one of the main characters from the main book in this other place where he got sucked into. And this is basically like, sometimes, hey, when like Franklin went into a time warp and then comes out looking older and whatever, something like that. It's kind of one of those kind of stories, but we see it getting played out and the character is still in it because the character before was kind of a weakling. But we see kind of them going through this and finding old people that from the family and learning how to fight finally and growing older and ultimately trying to find a way to get out of said dimension or whatever they play. And that's kind of what this ends. And I know Bitterroot is supposedly coming back sometime this fall. So
I was going to ask. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yes. Because as a matter of fact, I think I ended up reading the last single issue prior to this, and it leads off to the place. And then this kind of comes which is partially comes off of that because somewhere in there, like I said, that's when this character kind of falls into this place and it kind of fills in a gap until they come back in next fall, as according to the footnote says. And that is the end of all of my books. We get to Clicks of the Week.
Clicks of the Week.
And we already have 2 from our erstwhile absentee members. The first one would be from Dirt, and that is Marvel Tales Captain America, which came out this week. Which I know that is I think that's an IDW book where I don't know if it's a retelling or just some random other story. I didn't get a chance to actually look at it, but I know the Marvel Tales is kind of like the Marvel Action Books, where they're just like the other side stories of
right, and they're a little bit more all ages.
Right, exactly. And for Tim, which if you've been paying attention in the last few months, is probably no surprise, which I got this on deck to finish reading or to read up on, is Naomi number 6. I know he's been digging that book a good bit. And I also said, because I think he even said something on Twitter about it, and I was like, yeah, I had my interpretation for it, which is kind of known at this point based on who's writing it.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's a co-writing team.
That's what I was about to say. It's co-writing, so that kind of lessens the blow a little bit. And I think Tim even said on Twitter, was like, yeah, you'll definitely like it for the Jamal Campbell art, which I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. But at the same time, knowing that it's co-written kind of lessens the blow of, my interpretations about this book. So he didn't necessarily give him a reading, but like I said, I know he's been hot on his book.
All right.
For a minute. So cool. And as for myself and you,
I'm gonna go with my the first book that struck me as being well worth the time to read, and that's Thor number 15.
Kind of figured you would.
It was just a really great read, and as we mentioned earlier, the reveal of how Malekith is going to be tortured in hell is very reminiscent of the myths of old.
Cool. And for myself, no, Amazing was actually pretty good, but actually this was actually a pretty good week. I don't know, well, judging what Dirt said about what he read and why he picked what he picked. That's
right, but he's choosing amongst. I was about to say he's choosing amongst DC books because that's what he was reading. So,
well, I know, but I'm just saying that's like, and well, we know his proclivities are kind of more on DC side than stuff. So, which is why it made that pick was kind of weird. It was like, huh, okay. But anyway, stalling aside, you know what? I think I'm gonna go with Avengers number 21.
Okay.
I enjoyed that. There was a couple of books I could have picked this week, but that one, yeah, I'll go with that one. So first ad read of the night.
Our first ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles such as their world famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel including t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise such as custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today.
Cinematic news.
The news.
I forgot to put up the ad for.
That's okay.
But you know what? So you can see our smiling faces again.
It's okay. I read it. That's what matters.
Well, yeah, but I usually try to put it up just to whatever. So anyway, start off like we do every week, cinematic news, and we start off with actually I'll do the first two because they're both Snyder related but different.
Have fun. You can take it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, lucky me. Zack Snyder releases heartbreaking Justice League Cyborg photo from the Snyder Cut. So yes, the oft-mentioned, never probably realized Snyder Cut that people are still trying to petition for stupidly. That he's playing up. Let's be honest. And I don't know who this. I in all honesty, I probably shouldn't have even pulled this because this is a kind of a non-thing because I don't know who this Twitter account is, and that usually, because usually that doesn't bode well as being anybody legit. But regardless, people are still trying to petition the Snyder Cut, and they said, and this one Twitter account put over, Zack Snyder shared a black and white issue of Cyborg in the Cemetery, according to this. And I guess that was going to be something that was in his cut, which I feel like he's, because at this point it was like, well, yeah, we'll see if we can bait this out. Like, yeah, I had all these plans, but since there's no Snyder Cut, we won't get to see it. Now, to be fair, the reason why we didn't get Snyder's movie in the first place was because he had to deal with a family tragedy. So I'm not trying to belittle that part about it. But part of this kind of just was like, I got more to it that he just thought of and put that out. But that's not necessarily true. And so, like I said, I don't want to belittle the things that he went through, that got him off of the project in the first place. But yeah, that's a thing. So that supposedly happened. That may or may not come to pass. But the second article Zack Snyder related is that he is developing an anime with Netflix. And of course, the byline here, thanks to GameSpot, released the Snyder cut of Norse mythology. So, ha 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 ha. So apparently, but anyway, apparently he's partnered with the Netflix, and they're going to do something centered around Norse mythology. And hey, guess what? Snyder did 300. Maybe it's 300 related. We don't know,
or at least reminiscent.
Right. I mean, especially with anime, it's probably I would almost guarantee that it's probably an anime version of something in 300. It's not wouldn't be the first time something like that's happened. I don't know. It could be something totally different, but that's just a report that's going on that we don't know what exactly it is. It could be something totally different. Who knows? But as a thing, there you go.
All right.
Apparently, he's also working with another Netflix project, Army of the Dead, which I see is a movie that is conceived as a sequel to Snyder's Dawn of the Dead reboot for 2004. So Army of the Dead will mark Snyder's return after a 2-year directorial hiatus following the release of Justice League. So yeah, so Snyder's working. Yay, I guess.
All right. Next up, because I thought you were finished and then you added on an extra story. Kelly Sue DeConnick actually appeared on NBC's The Today Show earlier this week on Tuesday morning. In a segment, NBC reporter Jolene Kent interviewed Kelly Sue about her work in comics and had a big focus on Aquaman. Yeah. And by the way, I finally did see Kelly Sue DeConnick's cameo in Captain Marvel. You really can't miss it as long as you're not sort of overwhelmed by like the scene because it's the PlayStation
missed. Yeah, but if you and she's kind of distinctive, so it's like
right. It's in the subway scene, and it really is the way the scene plays out. You really can miss it if you're sort of overwhelmed by what's happening.
Right.
But if you're able to kind of sit and watch it, especially at home, you can really spot it right away.
Which, guess what? That's sooner said than not. I love Kelly Sue. She's dope. So that's cool. I had to watch that. Anyway, speaking of from one Captain Marvel to another, I guess.
Right.
To DC's Shazam documentary trailer comes out. So this is on the heels of. Oh yeah, by the way, folks, San Diego Comic-Con next week.
Get ready for lots of news.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're going to get some from this week because just like I said last week, prior to the show, there's going to be news about it, and yeah, we're going to get some of it here. So yeah, so there is a Shazam documentary that's going to be shown at San Diego, and the trailer for it has been put out. And as it says, DC Spotlight Shazam will have a world premiere on Thursday, July 18th through Comic-Con. And it is scheduled to be streamed on DC Universe later this year. Next.
Alrighty. Warner Brothers, HBO Max, new streaming service, includes DC Universe and Cartoon Network items and more. So it's all going to be mishmashed into this HBO Max app for their streaming application.
Yeah, now we've had word. We may have even reported on word of this happening, and I know we've talked about it in the back channel a little bit. So, but apparently, hey, guess what? It's a thing. It's happening, which is the weirdly named HBO Max. Now there's already a couple other streaming services under the HBO name, so it's kind of weird that it's HBO Max, which is HBO Cinemax, I assume. But well, actually, it's not soon. But HBO Max meaning Max meaning maximum, but
right.
But the fact that they call it that as opposed to CW, WB or something like that, and they went
or Warner Streaming or something,
right?
Yeah.
But as you said, there's logos for DC Universe, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, TBS, CNN, but New Line Cinema, True TV, a bunch of Warner-owned networks, which also begs the question of like what is going to happen with DC Universe. Like I know we've had reports of the maybe. Oh yeah, there's the Naomi thing. Huh, interesting. That there's a report that they may be trying to restructure that, or that could be something that could be swallowed up within this streaming service. I kind of hope not, and that it stays separate and keep the stuff that it's going to get. But that's not how things usually work in this situation. Next up. Didn't do that. Sorry.
It's yours.
I know. Spider-Man Far From Home still doesn't. You should have taken this one. Spider-Man Far From Home still doesn't do justice to Uncle Ben.
Because we literally talked about this last week in our very, very spoiler-free review of Spider-Man Far From Home. Go back and listen if you haven't watched it, or if you've watched it.
Right, and I thought we actually talked about this part after or before or after the fact. I can't remember. But maybe we did talk about it during the course of the thing. So yeah, let's listen to our thoughts there. Like, Agent 70s kind of believes in this. There's also I have a report. I think I'm just going to take it as CBR's fans of the show. Like, yes, we know somebody that works for them and that side. But I feel like there's been a couple of times, and this is all me just being jokey, but I know this can't be.
Yeah, this is firmly tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. Because there's been times even before Tim started working there where it's like we would bring up something on the show and then there just happened to be an article the next day, within the next day from. So, but like I said, that's all tongue in cheek. It's not including a couple of things that happened. But I know there was one that happened like the day of, like this one, I think, or something that we. No, there was actually an article that came out on the 4th that seemed like something we talked about that day, but obviously the article came out before we did anything. Anyway. So yeah, this is an article. There's slightly spoilerific on the movie if you haven't seen it. Which, like I said, we talked about it. We didn't try to spoil anything, and I think everybody on our panel has seen it.
I don't have confirmation that Tim saw it, but
that's what I'm saying. I'm not entirely sure about that one. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I definitely know that the surprise member of our panel actually watched it.
Yeah, I know, right? And actually liked it, I think. But yeah, so that's that. We won't go too far into it, but basically, like I said, what we said about this last week still holds true. I'm kind of saying whatever, and Agent 70 has his thoughts that kind of this article. Next up.
Speaking of Far From Home.
Oh yeah, there's still a couple articles on this.
Speaking of Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home has owned this previous 4th of July weekend, the long weekend, with, I think the numbers are updated to cover the Tuesday through Sunday portion of this Tuesday release.
Yeah, this article is from a few days ago, so as of this recording, we're recording on the 11th, so, and those numbers came out on the 7th, so that obviously those numbers will have changed by even this recording.
Right. So I want to say,
but it made a lot of money. That's the bottom line.
I want to say it made a lot of money and has earned a lot of money worldwide. So, yes. Disney's still making money hand over fist. But this is a reminder to all you folks out there who need to help Avengers Endgame overtake Avatar. Yes, this matters to me. I'm petty.
Which again, money's still going to the same place. So that's
petty.
This point, but I get it. You know what? Petty game strong. I get you. And on a side note, rest in peace to Rip Thorn. We're not having an intergalactic kegger. Which, if you know where that's from, yeah, go for it. Yeah. Next up, and I know there's a couple of people actually but we'll probably get to that as they come along. Far From Home, Zendaya scared Spider-Man suit will kill Tom Holland, which that's wow. So basically, she and Jacob Batalon was talking to MTV News, and they brought up the suit apparently, and both of them were like, and Jacob was like, I don't wish that on anybody because apparently the suit's real tight, and Zendaya was scared that she hoped that he doesn't regurgitate in the suit and chokes because of how tight the suit is or something.
Okay.
But that was a genuine fear that she said she had.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? Because she says like, you know what I think about all the time that really scares me? It's like when he wears that mask and you just can't take it off because it's all one piece. I get scared all the time. Like, what if he's working so hard that he throws up and then he chokes? And she says she thinks about it all the time. She hopes he doesn't get sick because for those reasons. So
Okay.
I guess that's telling in a couple of.
And on that morbid note,
I know, right? Hey, I mean, it kind of fits with the character, sort of, but
Right.
Anyway,
next up, this is very spoiler heavy. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, we don't have to go too far into it. Yeah, actually, the next couple are kind of on that lines.
Yeah, we'll tread lightly around these because we're still very close. We're still not that far away from the release of Spider-Man: Far From Home. So, for the benefit of those who still haven't gone out to see it, there is a twist to Nick Fury's story, and John Watts, the director of Far From Home, explains that particular twist. And if you want to avoid that spoiler, don't follow this story on our sheet, and don't follow any links that hint at that online.
Matter of fact, get off of social media. Just go.
Yeah, watch it first. I mean, that's kind of a rule nowadays. If you want to avoid spoilers for a movie that you want to be spoiled, that you want to go in spoiler free to, you kind of have to stay off of social media.
Although there is a way around it. It can be done. It's been done. You just have to tread lightly. Maybe mute some things if you need.
Which is essentially staying off because you're not fully immersed. So
something like that, yeah. But next up, Spider-Man: Far From Home derails the speaking of Nick Fury, reveals how long Nick Fury has been. Spoiler, which again we won't go too far into because of the spoilers given in the end of the movie. Next.
Right, and another kind of very spoilery thing, Spider-Man: Far From Home landed a particularly jaw-dropping cameo.
We kind of spoiled this last week,
Right, we did, and we rang the spoiler bell, but just in case.
Yeah, there was a certain cameo that happened in the mid-credit scene that, to the delight of myself and I'm sure most people, that care about those movies, in addition to the big reveal.
Right, it's a big canonical. It's a big character.
Yes, well, actually, two characters at that. If you think about it, but yes, a character and a place.
Right.
That get brought up. But yeah, so this article is basically goes into how that happened, I guess. Some behind the scenes from whoever they were talking to. Next, I really should have not put a lot of this stuff in there, but whatever, it's relevant.
We just go quickly through it. That's all.
Yeah, then you're gonna have a week of this or a week or two of this because news sites try to wring every little piece of information for the stuff for hits. I mean, I'm just saying that's just a thing that happens. I'm not even knocking it too much. But there does seem to be some articles that are like, hey, this happened. Oh yeah, this happened, but this, from the same site. I'm like, you just write an article on that. Anyway, editorializing. A minor MCU character just became much more dangerous, which I don't remember if we alluded to too much about this character, but Ralphie might be a bigger player than what happens
exactly. Call it a comeback. Because this character was introduced in the very first Iron Man movie, and in the wake of Endgame, all of a sudden, Ralphie may be playing a much bigger role.
And also, A Christmas Story ends in MC. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure it is. If Star Wars is, I'm sure A Christmas Story is.
Oh God, no.
Hello, help me build my Lego Death Star.
So yeah, a seemingly minor character that shows up that that shows up in this movie and has also been in the MCU, and as Agent already said, in a previous Iron Man movie, might be a bigger deal going forward based on something we may or may not have mentioned last week.
That is.
I don't remember we did, but yeah, I do remember that part. I wanted to bring it up, but because I think we kind of glossed around it.
Right, we're still not trying to spoil it.
Right, because of what happened to the main person in that dealing, but at the same time, it was kind of connected. So anyway, that's the thing. When you go see the movie, you know who Ralphie is. You know.
So this is kind of a spoiler as well, but
it's also been out there a little bit.
There's actually a story out here from it's information direct from the horse's mouth, Director John Watts of Far From Home, regarding why Stan Lee does not have a cameo in Spider-Man Far From Home. And it turns out that it was actually an active decision. It wasn't because they didn't have time to. It was a mix of a decision to have Stan's last cameo be in Endgame, and the fact that Stan really was not doing very well when the opportunity to film any cameo from Far From Home would have come up. So
right, because all the cameos, the previous cameos up until then was done earlier.
Right, and they were all pretty much done at the same time. So like they brought him to Atlanta, to the Pinewood studio and just filmed a whole bunch of them. So ultimately, that's the reason why, and it's a pragmatic reason.
Still kind of sad, but yes, it was a it felt basically boils down to it didn't feel right, given coming out of that, which makes sense. It was so I'm not even knocking it, but it's still notable.
Right, like you felt it. You felt it.
Like you was like, okay, yeah, this is gonna happen. Oh, no, it's not gonna happen. So, anyway, speaking of John Watts, who's been talking a good bit lately, like Tom Holland was last week. Spider-Man Far From Home director talks Marvel's PS4 game influences. Short and sweet, there weren't really, but and I wanted to bring this up last week because there were some scenes that seemed like it was taking it out of PS4 game.
Right.
Most notable, and this is not so much of a spoiler because if you think about Spider-Man, this tends to happen. He was swinging along taking selfies, which happens a lot, which can happen a lot in the PS4 game. He did say he did play the game on a break, but then thought like, wait a minute, I should be doing something that's not spider related. Like during the course of filming, they had a break and he played the game basically. And he was like, you know what, I shouldn't be doing something Spider-Man related while I'm still filming the Spider-Man movie. And then he went and just does something else. But he did play the game on a break a little bit. But as he says, none of that influenced, or he's saying that none of that influenced the movie. It just it does seem like it though. Like a couple of things that I saw that I know I've seen in the game really seems like it.
Right. I mean, listen, as selfie culture has exploded, it wasn't a surprise even for people who didn't play the game.
Well, but even outside of that though, like, okay, hey.
No, but even people, even for myself who didn't play the game, that's my point.
Well, but yeah, we also know, being people who know Peter's history, it's not like he doesn't take pictures of himself during the so the being selfie or being just for getting money from it,
right? Like automatic shutters for cameras.
It wasn't outside the realm of what would have happened regardless. So there's that. Oops.
All right, this is me. Black Panther's Chadwick Boseman shares an adorable fan letter that he received that was written in Wakandan.
Yes. So
we got a fan letter written in
basically
in Wakandan, and I was going to ask where is the alphabet published?
Oh, it's out there. You can do a search for it because I remember doing it when I feel like we talked about it. But there's also even a font, if I'm not mistaken, that you can do on a computer that will type out in Wakandan. But when so obviously there was the Wakandan alphabet was made for the movie, and the person Hannah Belcher, who created the alphabet that the kid used, found out about it, and then they told Chadwick Boseman, who tweeted about it, and and apparently he's Chadwick Boseman is interested in accents and language, even referring to the Wakandan language that was used, which is a mix of a couple of different languages, actual languages, I should say. Tweeted about this, and it was cool. I was like, that was really neat. So, and you can see the tweet here if you're watching the video that Chadwick Boseman made. So that was adorable. But yeah, you can definitely, if you just look up Wakandan alphabet, you can definitely find that out there, including, like I say, a font that you could plug into your plug in and use to type with.
Cool.
Next up, a report. John Wick creator boards Disney Plus's Falcon and Winter Soldier. So according to I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, the John Wick creator Derek Kolstad has joined the writing team, according to the Wrap, for Falcon and Winter Soldier. So expect much shooting and perhaps some dogs.
There's going to be some gun fu, or at least Bucky's version of gun fu.
Well, Falcon too, probably, because you could do some things with it.
Oh, yeah, I was about to say, I almost forgot that's his primary offensive weapon, other than stabbing people with the wings.
Exactly. So, but you are definitely right. There will be some probable kung fu with Bucky. But yeah, so apparently Kolstad is also doing the Just Cause movie for Sony and another Hitman. Oh, wait, there's going to be a Hitman television series? Oh, geez. Interesting. So yeah, so I guess he's getting that John Wick and other money while he's at it. Good on him, I guess.
Yeah, I mean they're probably working on John Wick 4 as we speak. So
more than likely, yeah, because we know there's more to come on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So move right along.
Or they might already have the story, so this is his next job. Oh my god.
That's probably also true.
Yeah, that's probably closer to the case. Yeah.
Because we talked about it right after 3 came out. It was like they already had
a date.
4 and 5. Yeah, they already had 4 and 5 out working on. So yeah, clearly they had something going on.
Right. My understanding is that they had put out a date for 4 so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It does sound like they already have a story in place for 4, and the writer is just like, hey, I'm going to jump on this Marvel train.
Right, and then it all's going to connect with Fast and Furious, and then another franchise is going to intersect with that. And
oh no,
one big happy Fast and Furious family.
If Fast and Furious wasn't owned by Universal. So.
You know what? They can work around that, but yeah, I've already hinted around to my putting together of a couple of universes, and that I still hold true that it's the case. Fight me for it. Next up,
the latest Star Wars animated short actually makes the Ewoks kind of scary.
They've been putting on these Galaxy of Adventure shorts, a little hot and heavy. I like it. So, and this one seems to be starting to round out. Towards the end of the original trilogy, because this deals with the Ewoks, obviously, as stated from Return of the Jedi. Yeah, and I guess this is probably the scene in Return of the Jedi when the Ewoks come into play and beat down a bunch of twice as taller their stormtroopers with sticks.
With rocks.
Yes. At that, which all right.
Logs is one thing, but rocks. Not boulders, rocks.
Yeah, rocks. They pelted them with rocks, and they had the one ATST get log jammed. Which you've surely everybody have seen this movie, but I don't know. I need to watch this one specifically to see if they actually do that one, because that's kind of funny. But yeah, check that out. Next up,
for Little Mermaid casting news, Disney cast Grownish, and no offense to her, but Grownish star Halle Bailey as Ariel, and I swear to God, I read that as Halle Berry when I first.
You are not the only one. Which, in fact, I didn't put it in here. Halle Berry herself did go out on Twitter and reply about the casting, and Miss Bailey here was like geeking out about it and was like, "Yeah, I'm glad we share names," which I'm pretty sure because she's probably named after Halle more than likely.
Right. And I hate to bring this out for this my debut use of this particular sound effect, but having never watched grownish, and I didn't recognize the name, I was like,
Who?
so there it is.
Well, yeah, apparently,
I never watched grownish. So I'm just like,
honestly, look.
seriously?
So here's the thing: she is, so according to this article, she is best known for one half of the R&B sister duo Chloe times Halle. I didn't know anything about that either.
Exactly.
Like
But at the end of the day, for someone young, for like, especially for the younger, casting anyone younger is always going to be hit and miss for us
right,
in terms of either facial or name recognition.
right. So as much as I hate to bring this up, yeah, there was a lot of hubbub and bitching about her casting because she is a young African American girl, and of course the Arrow was animatically portrayed because she's a freaking mermaid, by the way, as a little white redhead, and people just came out of the woodwork being really stupid about it. And there was an article that I put in about it, but it's still in the clickbait section, but I took it out of the news.
Sure, the thing is, it brings out the worst in people. So
and everything's been bringing out the worst in certain people the last couple of years, but I digress.
Right.
In other Disney news,
yeah, I was about to say, in more live action remake stuff.
Yeah, oh god, don't get me started.
Right. So there's a trailer for the first trailer for the Mulan live action remake. Blazes with grace action and apparently more faith to the original Mulan story and less, at least according to the trailers thus far, maybe being less beholden to the animated version that we are so familiar with.
Right. But I mean, from the couple of friends I saw, it looks good. So, and I know you're trying to rush this along to it. So we'll keep.
No, I mean, I watched it.
Did you? Okay. So how would you think about it? Because I don't.
I mean, it was.
I've never seen Mulan, and I know I'm going to catch hell for that, but whatever.
I mean, there was a time when we were not overwhelmed with Disney movies and animated movies where watching these kind of came de rigueur, where you just sort of did it at some point.
Yeah.
You watched it with nieces.
There are people
not necessarily with their own kids yet.
Right. There are people younger than me who are big Disney fans who are like, I'm like, yeah,
right.
And because they are more of age for these particular sets of movies that they're remaking than probably me and you.
Right. There's a generation that came after us that this is, that came up when they were young and the movie came out. So.
Right. So this is from '98. I'm like I was getting out of college and working. I'm like, right. I plan to rectify that fact, and I probably will stay away from the.
Right. I mean, I was still an undergrad at that point, like just about to come out of it, but ultimately,
in fact, I was out of college at that point. I think.
Right, but that was something that was like, that was like something to see with friends and whatnot. So
sure,
that's the only reason at that point why I was. Why I had seen it at that point.
And thus also my Disney friends who keep quoting songs from said movies like Mulan and whatever. Like I know some of the stuff and I know where they're from, but I have not seen the movie. So I will catch myself sometimes like catching a bar of a song that I should not have any kind of recollection of because I've not seen the movie. But yeah, it's weird. Anyway, next up, the first footage for Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 is here, and it's bonkers. Eva's bonkers, as 1870 can.
Yes, I can attest to having come off of a very strenuous binge.
Wait, you did do the other couple of movies also, right? Or
I did one of them. I didn't do. Okay. I didn't do the more confusing one. I did the less confusing one.
Okay.
Which is the one that came later in time.
Right. The epilogue.
Right.
The true ending, as they
would say. I don't necessarily want to go back and confuse myself more with the first ending that came out. Or with the second ending that came out. I watched the third ending and I was like, oh, okay.
I was about to say you did it during the original, so I think you've done you've done diligence. But yeah, so apparently there's more to since Eva came out on Netflix, and there's more to it. And apparently, yeah, I don't know, man. It's a lot. Anyway, we're gonna move right along because
Not even trying at this point.
Yeah.
Not even trying.
I'm actually doing a rewatch of it even now, and I'm like, okay, I don't know.
It's first.
I'm not even to the crazy stuff yet.
Right, it's first footage. When it's released, that's when I'll deal with it.
Yeah.
Star Trek Picard on the CBS All Access app. Patrick Stewart has debuted an unexpected co-star in the new image for Picard show, and
yes, and basically set the internet aflame slightly because of this. So yeah, if you're watching the video, you can see the poster in question. Picard, aka Patrick Stewart, looks like
aka John Wick. Oh no, I'm kidding.
I know, right? Actually, he looks more like he's straight out of Firefly with that picture.
Okay.
With the I guess it's a shirt, but it looks like a duster and the boots and whatnot.
That's why I thought John Wick. I was like, it looks like a suit.
Yeah. No, yeah, nice. Like I said, to me, just like he just came straight out of Firefly. But so he has a picture of a dog, which I guess is a pit bull, which apparently he actually owns a pit bull in real life. No one's sure if the one in the picture is his actual one or the one they got for the show. So yeah, so he's gonna have a coaster with the dog, and people love dogs on the internet. It's a fact. It says, standing right beside him, yeah, it's a pit bull with a Starfleet logo hanging from his collar, and you know those collars are gonna sell now if they haven't already been out.
Right.
So anyway, next up
is you.
Paper Girls, which I know this should probably please Tim. Paper Girls graphic novels eyed as Amazon time travel drama series, which like again, Tim being the only one who has actually read Paper Girls and knows what's going on in that thing. But apparently, Deadline reports that it's possibly going to end up as an Amazon show because they're mining every bit of comics from every angle for a live action thing.
They're looking for that intellectual property to exploit.
I'm starting to get I'm past.
I can't believe they actually have 30 issues of that. Wow.
Yeah, and I can't remember. I think we talked about it's either set to end or what is about to end at some point. I don't remember. Regardless, but yeah, I think it's either ended or ending at some point soon, if it has not already ended. So yeah, but yeah, and yet they can't get Saga off the ground. Let me stop. I'm not even gonna do that. Not doing that because we talked about that at one point either way. So I don't know. I still not read Saga, so don't shoot me. All right, we're going to go into briefly the comic book news, starting off with Star Wars confirms that Palpatine's Darth Vader mentorship was dumb. This has to do with a Age of Rebellion book that I did not yet read because I'm pretty much stocking those up, and I got tired of reading those when they came out. I'm just being honest. Because half of them have nothing to do with anything pertinent. But anyway, so yeah, that's that. You can do stuff if you want to see how that what that actually means. Next.
Alrighty. A trailer was released teasing absolute carnage, and the trailer promised that not everyone's going to make it out alive.
Nice. Yeah, I have no sound effect for that, but whatever.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
But I should have pushed that. Oh, why did I get this one? Marvel announces Fantastic Four grand design by Tom Scioli.
Because you love Tom Scioli's art on GoBots.
No.
Oh no!
Absolutely. Okay, it's better than that Transformers. Yeah, Joe thing he did, but no, it was better for him, just not good. Like, hey, guess what? So here's my thing. Ed Pescore did the grand design, X-Men grand design stuff. I feel like Marvel must have asked him. He was like, "Nah, either I can't do it, or I won't do it because I'm not whatever." And then they got Tom Scioli, who basically, I would argue, is biting Pescore's style.
You think?
That's my personal opinion. I don't think that may not.
So there's a couple of things to this, right? I wanted to add a couple of things to this before we move on.
Sure.
Believe it or not, Ed Piscore actually has a YouTube show.
Oh, yes. I knew that already. Yeah.
He actually had Tom Scioli on as a guest in the wake of this announcement.
Okay.
So I don't know if Scioli, I'm not familiar with Scioli's artwork.
Let's put it this way. There are people who came across Piscore first
Mm-hmm.
Then Shioli happens to come along. They probably have been out around the same time and just have similar styles. So
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a little bit more indie, a little bit more like whatchamacallit, kind of Crumb influenced.
yes.
I was just going to add that Piscor came out fairly early on, in between in between volumes of Grand Design, and said that he didn't necessarily want to do other Grand Design books because he just wasn't as big a fan as he was of the X-Men.
Which again, like lends credence to what I just said before I knew all that. Before you said that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, like I said, and as a fan of Ed Piscor's and not so much of a fan of Tom Scioli, I still stand behind what I said. But
I'll look at it, but it's not going to be something I pull right away.
Yeah, basically. And I do say, like, when we talked about GoBots, I was like Tom Scioli's art has gotten better from the first thing that I know PC and underscore Dirt and I both looked at, which was Transformers versus G.I. Joe, which was kind of a mess art wise.
Gotcha.
So he's gotten a little bit better. I still stand by everything I just said about whatever, knowing what I know.
Alrighty.
Next
up is Mike Allred and Peter Milligan are launching a book called The Excellent in 2020. So these former Ecstatics collaborators are now coming together to produce a book called Excellent,
which is basically more Ecstatics, kind of.
Pretty much. It's
which, by the way, Giant Size Ecstatics came out this week. None of us watched. None of us read it.
Right.
So, but yes, there's going to be more in 2020. So, and apparently that Giant Size Ecstatics reveals an all new Yugo girl, which is of the original, who died in Ecstatics.
Gotcha.
So I guess this the book that came out this week is kind of setting up what they're going to do next year.
All right, and of course we get more dupe. We all want more dupe.
Yes, which never Kirk never really understood. He was a good treasure goblin in Marvel Heroes. That's all I will say.
All right.
Oh gosh, Marvel debuts team of Axe body spray inspired superheroes.
Hey, boo!
That's all I'm gonna say about that. So yes, a trailer uploaded to Axe's website introduced 5 fresh. Okay, so the comic publishers will introduce the Freshmen, a new team inspired by Axe body spray. Mind you, they're not all men. And yes, I get the fresh part of that joke, but whatever. So anyway, there's a trailer that was uploaded to Axe's website who introduces the 5 freshmen from the Future Mind School of Science and Technology in Chicago. And they give their names, and the narration explains that thanks to a combination of their own scientific know-how and Wakandan technology, they become superheroes. And together they are the Freshmen.
Oh, sorry. I totally airhorned. I airhorned over your sound effect.
Also,
that's so funny.
So yeah, that's the thing that's coming. But I mean, there has been marketed things. There's been a bunch of card/cartoon crossover things. This is not the first time.
And real quick, didn't Ant-Man make an Axe body spray joke when he was getting ready to disconnect Tony Stark?
That is also yes. Whether that's related to his or not is inconsequential. But yes, that did happen.
That is funny as hell.
So yeah, look out for that. Who cares?
That is funny as hell. All right, next up.
Next up is the thing I alluded to earlier. We don't really get to. So on Comixology, the Young Guns sketchbook, which is like gets your first look into the next generation of Marvel artists with the Young Guns sketchbook. It is free on Comixology. So you just go there and check it out. and it's got some samples of artists they're working with. And I think, like I said, one of them might have been one of the artists we were talking about earlier.
Right, it's $3.99. It actually, in terms of who's featured, at least on the cover that's available in the preview, you have Mike Del Mundo, who's coming off of a good run on Mighty
Really new.
No, but that's who they're featuring, right?
Right.
The young gun, because none of these people are all that new. And now I'm going to mention the other Thor artist, which is Russell Dowderman, who's listed as a young gun.
But that's kind of weak because actually I didn't even look at the cover.
And wait a second, there's more.
Yeah, none of these people actually.
Marco Cicchetto has been around for a while,
right?
And Aaron Cooter's been around for a while as well.
Pepe Larraz has been around for a little minute.
Right, and Javier Garron is doing solid work on Miles right now. So it's
probably the newer of all those other names. Most of those other names.
No, but what I was going to say is they may be listed as young guns because they're the ones who may have been freshly inked to exclusives. So
I guess sure.
That might be it.
That sounds plausible, but when you think about something like that, you thinking, oh, these are fresh new, like brand new fresh artists, not people who've been doing things for the last couple of years. You know, but hey, whatever, you can go check them out, and there's little bios about them, so it's still worth a look, regardless. Next up, request to put Spider-Man on a child's grave. Now, this is a report.
What? Where?
This is a report. There's and this is also coming from The Sun, which is a British.
Where is this?
The UK.
No. Where is this? Where's the story?
What are you talking about? It's in.
The next thing I have is listen to Marvel's Wolverine: The Lost Trail for free.
Oh, you know what? Then I basically skipped one.
So, I was just like, where is the story?
Yeah. So that was a story after this one you talked about, which is actually kind of funny because that Scott Adsit guy also did a voice in this Wolverine Lost trailer, if I'm not mistaken. Which the news is that, hey, you can listen to the first 2 chapters of Wolverine: The Lost Trail, which is the season 2 of the Wolverine audio podcast from Marvel for free on Marvel's website, and the link is in the show notes.
Right, because this is, I think, a Stitcher exclusive.
Exactly.
So
which I think
have to pay for it.
I believe also Stitcher's rebranding and they're going by something else now because I just saw an article on that.
Okay.
So, but how that plays into this, who knows? Who cares? But yeah, if you're interested in that, you can go check that out. They're like 30 minutes a piece. So now
you can talk about.
Yeah, so basically, so there's a report coming from the UK that Disney has reportedly denied the request to use Spider-Man on the grave of a 4-year-old kid who I guess passed away from leukodystrophy. So I guess that sounds like it. I'm not even gonna speculate. I'm not a medical person. Someone dressed as Spider-Man led the procession at his funeral, and the superhero appeared on his casket. His father also sought permission to use the popular comic book character's likeness on his son's headstone. However, the Maidstone Council told of Maidstone UK Council told Jones that he'd have to go get the go ahead from Disney. Jones contacted the company so as to use Spider-Man's likeness, but Disney reportedly denied him the use of the character. Again, this is a report. This is from The Sun, which I believe isn't that a tabloid? I don't know British publications, but that sounds like it's tabloid. And I'm not gonna look.
You got me.
But it's a report, so we don't know if how much of this is actually true. I mean, I would say that I would possibly believe it because you got to protect that IP. But at the same time, I don't know. Just don't know.
All right.
It would be kind of sad if that is the case, but again, like I said, that's IP rights are a silly thing. Next,
the Sith troopers from Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker have been unveiled for San Diego Comic-Con in the lead up to San Diego Comic-Con. Yep. So these are red armored soldiers, and they're going to appear in the upcoming film. I've seen jokes that this is what happens when the stormtroopers don't put on enough sunblock.
Well, yeah, they were on that planet in Rogue One, so sure, why not? That sounds stupid. But hey, you know what? There you go. You can get one when you're heavily nicely kitted out and missing everything in sight. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Actually, the Force Awakens guns are better than the originals, so nerd out just a little bit. Next up, Lego Zebra Batman exclusive to San Diego Comic-Con 2019. Yes, folks, you heard those words come out of my mouth. As you can see the picture here, sadly it's not rainbow Batman. And sadly it's not rainbow colored Spidey from Amazing Spider-Man 25, but I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be a figure. That has to be. Anyway, so yeah, you can see the Lego figure here, all dressed out in its Lego finery in zebra stripes, and sure, you can go check that out if you're a Lego and or Batman fan. Next.
DC has unveiled the first gen lock cover art. So this is, what the hell is this?
So basically, so Rooster Teeth, who the likes of make Red versus Blue and Ruby, RWBY, also have. Well, I think we talked about the Genlock show that they are also doing on YouTube, which is the thing that Michael B. Jordan is a part of. That's been going on since January. They are going to do a comic book series both on Genlock and Ruby, RWBY. And there's also rumblings of, and I believe this article says so, of a crossover between the two from Rooster Teeth. So there you go. That's pretty much that in a nutshell. I have not checked out Genlock and hadn't seen Ruby in a good minute, but hey, sure. That'll be stuff for San Diego because they're gonna, I guess, talk about that a little bit more there.
Okay.
Next up, Ryan Sook's Legend of Superheroes 3 designs updated, which so we pretty much talked about some designs he'd already done, and I guess there's going to be more. Or there was some more designs that he put out, including Superboy, which I believe wasn't there previously, and a couple other people. So there you go. Next.
All righty. So the cover. So the final issue of the Batman Who Laughs series by the series artist Jock has been revealed, and it's sure to send a chill down fan spines. So it was released as part of the announcement of the title's upcoming 7th and final issue.
I wonder if anybody's ever said, "Get off his jock." Thank you. Which, if you're of a certain vintage in certain areas, you would know what that means. Anyway, moving right along. The long-awaited Superman Smashes the Klan debuts this October. Long-awaited, the long-anticipated all-ages Superman adventure written by Eisner winner Jing Jun Yang is headed your way this fall. It was announced at the beginning of last year. I don't remember that, but we may or may not have talked about it as a part.
We did, I think.
Yeah, because we did talk about the line, that DC Zoom line, which is this is coming out of, that's aimed at middle schoolers. So yeah, the comic will be coming out this October. Again, it's all ages. October 16th to be more specific. And let's see, with the first of 3 80-page perfect bound issues, the collected issue will be released in 2020. Yada yada yada. So yeah, look out for that in October.
Alrighty, next up,
this is all you.
Oh yeah. Guess what's late? Doomsday Clock and in a minor issue, Shazam have slipped further behind schedule. So apparently Shazam has pushed back a bunch of upcoming issues.
Man, it's not the first pushback for Shazam, but definitely
right on the schedule.
Yeah.
And Doomsday Clock has been pushed back another 2 weeks to the end of August. That would be issue number 11. So my dollar bet still stands. My bet is that Doomsday Clock will not finish until 2020, but there's still a very good chance it will, but I'm betting it won't. But it's only $1. But, I think the odds are still good that it'll finish in 2019.
Need that gif of the trading places guys passing dollars between each other.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wizards of the Coast says 40 million people are playing Dungeons and Dragons. I don't doubt that. But that has nothing to do with what we're about to talk about next, which is DC rolling out San Diego Comic-Con exclusive variants for new DC Universe 1-year signups. So if you happen to be going to San Diego and you have already signed up for DC Universe and will be signed up for a year worth of DC Universe at the time that you're at the show, congratulations. You can go get a variant cover of a couple of books, of a couple of things. What that being Young Justice Outsiders #1, Detective Comics 1000, Saga of Swamp Thing #21, and Doom Patrol #19. So,
all right.
I happen to be a part of DC Universe. Not going to San Diego. I probably wouldn't care about doing this if I care. Anyway, next up,
Boom Studios has announced its San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, their panel schedule, and their schedule of special events.
Yes. So yes, this is basically, and the next couple of articles are going to be pretty similar from other companies. So yeah, they're lining up their panels and such for San Diego, which also Oni Press has done, because here's what Oni Press plans for San Diego Comic-Con. And again, this is their slate of panels and their goings on, all lined up and numbered. So if you are going to San Diego and care what you, at this point, you're probably already lining up what you're planning on doing, because that schedule's probably already out there. Next up, in fact, you know what? Let me just go ahead and do this last one. IDW rolls out SDCC plans as it celebrates its 20th Comic-Con. So again, like I said, this is IDW's list of panels and things that they plan on doing during the show, including, looks like there's a panel with Joe's Decay and a bunch of other things going on. So cool. Next up,
this was just a setup so that I would get the next story. The Care Bears are out. The Care Bears
stare.
They're out to strike up new friendships with Unlock the Magic. They're coming to comic books, and they're back with their whatchamacallit. They're going to come out with a 3-issue comic book series debuting this week.
Yes, look out for the inevitable My Little Pony / Care Bears team up coming at some point. Because friendship is magic, and you have to unlock the magic, so something's got to happen in between that, right? Right. I don't know. Next up, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fully debuts its female turtle, including her mask color. So there was a I think I did tag I did put the tweet on here, but there was a tweet before I saw this article from IDW, which basically, here, let me pull it up real quickly, of them basically spoiling this in a sense, because so the tweet goes, due to recent storyline in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles City at War, we have created a unique spoiler reveal variant of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #95 to commemorate the newest turtle, Janika. We will be pre-selling copies for this book at San Diego only, and limiting it to 1 per person. And from the comments, it looks like it's going to be spendy. But yeah, so the Turtles have a new member, sadly not named Venus de Milo, if anyone remembers the live action show from the 90s. Yes, exactly. That many people do. But spoiler alert, there's a new turtle who was once human, was a man, who ends up getting a transfusion from Leonardo and becomes a turtle. Which is why that's, between this article and that kind of spoilerish thing on our thing. But again, as someone mentioned in the comments of that Twitter, it was like, they're trying to capitalize on the on that reveal, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Why they do that, and it kind of makes sense. But so the Turtles got a new member. So I don't know if this makes them 5 or did one of the Turtles die. I don't know. Doesn't matter because I haven't been reading that book. But apparently that issue's also been sold out. When did that book actually come out? July 31st. So yeah, There you go.
It'll be after, right? It'll be after the con.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. And yeah, like I said, I read this article, and I do remember seeing subsequent articles about what was kind of going on in that book surrounding before this. So, okay, that's the thing.
Right.
Next up,
the 31st annual Will Eisner Comic Industry Awards will be held and presented Friday night, July 19th, just a short walk south from the convention center at the Hilton Bayfront in the ballroom. And Benedict Wong, Raina Telgemeier, and more have been revealed as Eisner Awards presenters.
Mm-hmm. So cool. Yeah, obviously we will, after the show happens and the awards get put out, I'm sure we will have the news coming from that. Maybe one of these days we'll actually report from San Diego on this stuff. Yeah, no, probably not. Anyway, next up. If anybody wants to sponsor that trip, I'm all for it. I know there will probably be we talked about this last week, 2 of us, because one of them's probably almost slated to go if they get a chance to, and we know one of us doesn't like to travel that far, but they do travel.
Mm-hmm.
So, anywho, what comics go with what cocktails? Let Jeremy Hahn guide you. So this is a Kickstarter that I thought was slightly interesting. Writer-artist Jeremy Hahn is launching. Wow, this is a weird sentence. Is bringing his love of comics together. Man, let me edit that.
Yep.
You know what? Hey, you can hire me for an editor. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, for a new project called Comics and Cocktails, the project, hosted by Patreon, will have a bi-weekly comic-style receipts. Shouldn't that be recipes? Receipts of Hahn's favorite cocktails. This isn't ingredients written on the back of a bar napkin. No, he'll be including illustrations of bottles, ingredients, and barwares, which sounds more like recipes than receipts. So, but at some point, he's aiming to collect these strips into a standalone book.
Editors
is the key, man. You gotta have them. Like again. I guess who wrote it was an editor. But anyway, we're gonna let that smoke.
5 will get you 10. They were trying out those recipes and it came out receipts. Anyway,
they were just rushing to get news out, like sometimes they tend to do, and didn't edit their own stuff. Anywho, yes. Last but not least.
Okay.
Did you say Narf?
I did.
Nice. Sorry, I stepped on that.
It's okay. Last but not least, Valiant. I think we discussed this earlier.
Yeah.
At one point earlier, Valiant is releasing a collection of classic comic books in digital format. They're going to be 695 digital comics on one USB flash drive. These comics are going to range from publication dates of January 1992 and June of 2000. So this is the previous iteration of Valiant.
Right. So yeah, we talked about that this was going to happen, but apparently it is now up for free for pre-sale as of the 1st of July, and they will be released in September of this year. So if you are a Valiant fan and don't already have those books from that era and want a bunch of books on a hard drive that you could therefore back up on a hard drive on a computer and put out. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. We don't condone that kind of stuff. But I'm saying you can have this. Get Still in Business doing their thing. And I think we did have a lengthy conversation on this show about that stuff happening. And so that's kind of cool in a way, even though there are other ways to sell that stuff at this point. But that brings us to the end of the show, and we have one remaining ad read to go.
Our last ad read of the night is for Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Blue Apron has fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home. With Blue Apron, always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today.
I would very much like some pizza right about now, not for nothing. But until that ends up happening, or whatever ends up happening after this, thank you, each and every one of you, for coming out. We are at the end of the show, and we love you all. And well, we love some of you. We don't love all of y'all. Let's be really real about that. So most of y'all are cool though. But for myself, Roddykat, who you can find at Roddykat on Twitter to send that hate mail to. Also, News Nerds Need on Twitter, News Nerds Needs Reddit, CB Caps on Instagram, Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram, BC_Dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, and all of the umbrella sites therein. Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, The Click Nation on Twitter, The KLIQNATION, Where is Letterman, CB Cron on Twitter, and of course TheClickNation.com, and Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. You can find us on CSPN.us. That's the Coastal of the Podcast Network, and that is the site.
Do it today.
Exactly. And you can subscribe to this podcast on Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, on the Coastal of the Podcast Network's page, and of course Spotify, as I had someone asked me about earlier, a day or two ago, which was
nice.
Yeah. And with that, folks, we will see you back here next week, where we're sure to be more San Diego news, because we will be
neck deep
of it. Yeah, we will be on the cusp of actually, yeah, the show will have started by then.
We'll have started. We will be neck deep in San Diego announcements. That'll be basically part one, and we'll be recapping the announcements on the show the week after.
Yeah, because there's usually a couple of weeks, but I mean, obviously there's stuff beforehand, but yeah, there will be definitely stuff coming out the couple of weeks after that fact, and we will bring them to you. Because we love you like that.
Right. And I was about to say, and bear in mind, there's a couple of big books that are coming out soon. So we're going to have some stuff to talk about in
stuff
Comic-Con.
Right. Stuff that we alluded to earlier with talking about the ending of an event. Definitely, if that's what you were talking about.
Well, that and the big X event is coming too.
Oh, right. That's the week after, because that's the stuff not starting until the 25th, I believe.
Right, but that's been teased. There's actually been some teaser paper, some teaser like mini posters that have been distributed this week. So.
Well, yeah, that and that the documentary that we talked about last week and a few others, they're pushing that one. So yeah, definitely we will be talking about that a little bit more, and I'm pretty sure most of us will probably be reading that. So more on that when that happens. Until then, this has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One. We out.
Good evening, Rick. Would you believe it's Dr. Doom?
What's on your evil mind?
Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really hired, Mr. Stark?